Good evening, everyone, and welcome, 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 welcome. This is another evening where we once again learn about politics and governance. Today, we'll be looking at gender and governance. This is the 17th class in this cohort, the cohort XIII. Happy Sunday once again. My name is Adishola. I will be your moderator, and we will give everyone 5 minutes and we will kickstart this at 5. Okay, we're just 11 on the poll. Let's remember our class rules. You come in, you place your names in the chat box and your pseudo political parties. Okay, thank you. Party chairpersons, if you're here, please go into your respective WhatsApp groups and nudge everyone to please come in. Okay, all right. So we'll give another 4 minutes to have the numbers increase, and then we will kickstart in earnest. Thank you once again and welcome. I bid you welcome on behalf of the college. Thank you. Good evening once again. My name is Adeshola. I'll be your moderator for this evening. And, okay, we have increased by another 11. Thank you, party chairpersons. We would like to ensure that we at least have at least 30 on this call to ensure we have a robust discussion. Our facilitator for this evening will be taking us on gender and governance. And I'll go ahead to read her profile and her short bio. XIII017 John is a policy and advocacy strategist and community development worker. She has years of experience in community project implementation. She is interested in building a community-aware, climate-smart Nigeria through capacity building and partnership development. She is the head of climate change at Clean Technology Hub. Today, we have the privilege of listening to XIII017 John as she takes us on gender, inclusivity, I believe, and governance. So please, with emojis, let's make welcome Madam XIII as I hand over the virtual lectern to her. You are most welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I'll leave my video on for a while so that you can see who is talking to you. But I'd like to make a correction. I think my profile is a little bit, it was updated this evening. I don't know if it was shared with you. I'm no longer with Clean Technology Hub.
Oh,
So
wow.
Yeah, sorry about that, it was updated. I guess maybe the updated one was not shared with her.
Wasn't shared.
Okay.
Apologies about that.
It's fine. Thank you very much. So I'm really happy to be here. This is a new class, and I'm hoping that we'll learn together. I hope that we will participate as much as you can, because I really do not like talking to myself. I like participatory classes, and I'm hoping that we'll learn together and we'll work together on this journey. So please feel free to call my attention back because I do tend to speak a little fast. So feel free to call my attention back when I am a little fast for you. I think we can keep all our questions and comments at the end of the presentation, and we can note them down. We can note them down in the comment in the chat box, and we can raise them at the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. Am I sharing my screen or you are?
You can share your screen, ma'am, or I can ask any of the admins to do so.
Okay. I think Lisa has my presentation.
Okay, you prefer it shared for you, right?
Yes, please, so that I'm able to look
no problem.
better. Thank you.
Charlie, please, could you do that? Charlie, can you confirm you can hear me?
Yes, I can. I'm
Okay.
there now.
Okay, so
All
I
right,
can.
Okay.
Let me get. I can do. Okay. Okay, please go to the next slide. So gender in 2024 is a little bit more complex than we all know it to be. But basically today, what we are going to be doing is to be taking a look at women in Nigeria, what used to be before it became Nigeria, and what used to be the role of women in our communities, in governing, and what became of women when the colonialists came, and generally, how women participate in governance. Women have a huge population in Nigeria. We are almost equal. I think the men, I'm not sure of the 2024 World Population Bureau, but as 2022, we were 49 to 51%. 49% for women, 51% for men. So women work, they vote, and they pay taxes, but we are grossly underrepresented when it comes to governance. Why is this so? And what can we do as women or as people who are working in this sector to make it better. I hope everyone can hear me, so please just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Next slide, please. Okay, so the term gender in our own part of the world refers to social constructs that defines women, men, girls, and boys. This includes norms, behaviors, rules associated with being a woman, man, girl, or a boy. But when you're in other parts of the world, we have very confusing, I will call it confusing or controversial definitions of gender, because there are people who say that they are who they are because they identify as a certain gender. A man can identify as a woman can identify as a man, a girl can identify as a cat, and all that, and we are expected to respect that. That is part of governance. So governance, like we know, is pattern of rule and practices of governing. Study of governance generally approaches power as a distinct form or exceeding the centralized authority of the modern state. We have different types of governance, like we know. We have traditional governance, we have democratic governance, we have authoritative governance. We are not going into that. We want to focus more on women and the role they play in governance. So I wish they were not able to share this slide. I wanted to ask if you are aware, how many people know women who are traditional rulers in today's Nigeria? If you know any woman who is a traditional ruler in today's Nigeria, please raise your hands and share. I'm not seeing any hands up. None. Okay, so we'll see. Victor, we'll see if that is right. Please go to the next slide. So this is Her Royal Highness Moyiwola Olubumi Falowo. She's the regent in Ibule, a federal local government of Ondo State. She's a graduate. Okay, you're attending the same school. So why didn't you let us know? She succeeded her father as the king, and she's selected to reign as king until the kingmaker selects a new king to rule over the community. So she's a regent in a community in Ondo State. Next slide. This is Her Royal Majesty Taiwo Oyegbola Agbola. She's a Regent Taiwo. She was crowned temporarily in 2027 because her father died, and she was crowned to the throne after Alaye Oba Obunro Oromoyo II passed on. Please forgive me. Joined the sentence in 2007. She's a graduate of Achievers University Owo, where she studied medical laboratory science. Next slide, please. So we have Her Royal Majesty Tinude Babalala. I think she's about 23 years old, and she just finished her youth service, and she's also a traditional ruler. Next slide, please. Okay, she's recently deceased. She's Her Royal Majesty, the owner of Anyoma Mata Jukwa from Okwaron. She was a media practitioner. She studied in United States. She returned 35 years ago to Nigeria, and she was crowned. She consulted for the late Oba of Benin, and she was crowned she was crowned in that role. She served in that role till she recently. She served in that position for about 20 years till she died recently. So these are some of the women. There are a lot more that I can show. These are some of the women who are traditional rulers in Nigeria, in modern day Nigeria. Some people say that there are no female traditional rulers, but these are women, some of the women who are traditional rulers in modern day Nigeria. Next slide, please. Okay. So Nigeria has been generally recording low participation of women in elective positions and appointed positions. This is a growing concern to many Nigerians, especially to women and civil rights groups. There have been concerted efforts made by government and non-governmental organizations to increase the level of participation of women. Political parties have giving women some leeway. Some have said we are reducing the cost for participation of women in politics for them to, we are waiving the cost of fees for them to take up an elective position. But that has really not worked because we still have very low percentage of women participating in governance. The Beijing Women's Conference, which took place years ago, advocated for 30% affirmative action. That means that 30% of women should be, 30% of positions in governance, elective and appointed positions should be reserved for women. Now, that is a little bit controversial, especially now that we have various groups that come up to say, oh, we identify as this and we identify as that. And other groups also come up to say, we want our own, youths are also coming up to say, we want our own affirmative action positions. People with disability are also coming up to say, we want our own affirmative action positions. So it is, it's a little bit tricky to say because of a certain gender, we are reserving this kind of, this percentage of positions for women, for youth, for children. It is normally lip service by a lot of political parties, but not really something that is followed through. Next slide, please. So global participation for women is about 22.5%. And participation for Nigeria is just 6.7%, which means we are, even though for the global participation, we do not have the 30% yet. And for Nigeria, it is far, far less than that. So, okay, I have 1,000 Naira recharge card up for grabs. Any network of your choice. And I have a simple question. And please, you have to participate. Which present-day states of Nigeria had the most number of female monarchs in the pre-colonial era? I don't know if you got the question, or should I repeat it again? You can type or you can raise your hand and unmute, and I'll call you. You can unmute. On those, somebody said on those states. I said pre-colonial Nigeria, not modern day Nigeria. That is before the colonialists came. Ogun State. Somebody said Ogun State. I'm waiting to see more responses to this. I have Ondo. I have Ogun. I have Oshun. Okay. All the O's are going. All the O's are on. Any other person? I have Ondo, I have Ogun, I have Oshun. So Priska said Oshun, Sunday said Ogun, and Oluwakeji said Ondo State. So these are the three answers I have. Okay, Tosin is also saying Ogun State. There's no right or wrong answer. Just put in your answers and we are learning as we go. Okay, Olubusoya Johnson said Katsina State. Okay. I'm waiting for 2 more answers, then I'll close this quiz and we move on. And I announce my winner. Even though my winner will have some explaining to do. Did you just Google it, or did you have this information before now? Okay, actually, Olubusoye Johnson is right. It's Katsina State. Can you unmute and tell us why you chose Katsina State? Olubusoye, can you hear me? My winner is not responding, so maybe I'll hear from her later. Please go to the next slide. Okay, you have to be unmuted. Okay, so can you just type your response in the chat? That would be nice. Yeah, Olubusoye is actually right. Katsina State had the highest number of female monarchs pre-colonial times. They had 8 queens. Okay, yes, please go ahead, Olubusoye. How did you guess Katsina State? Did you just Google it, or you had this information before now?
Good evening, ma'am.
Yes, good evening. Please go ahead.
Yeah, you guessed right, but I googled it and I found it on an academic paper, ma.
Okay, I guessed as much, but it's still, at least you made the effort, and we are all learning. So yeah, she's right. Katsina Emirates, it was not a state then, it is an emirate, had the largest number of female monarchs, especially the Dora Emirates. And as we go on this course, we are going to talk a little bit about how colonialism also affected female participation in governance, colonialism and religion. For Katsina, you can see that even before Nigeria became Nigeria, and even before this became a state, we can see that women had a leading role far beyond. Thank you, Priska. I'm happy you like this class. Even far beyond, it is something that nobody expected, because if you are thinking of female participation, even in education now, nobody will guess Katsina State. Who will imagine that years ago, Katsina State had women who were leaders, who were queens, who were leading men, who were leading armies, had the most leaders beyond Oyo, beyond the Oyo Empire, beyond the Ogun Empire, beyond a lot of places that we see now as more enlightened. But some of these things are the influence of religion and culture that affected the participation of women. So before the colonialists, we had this. I don't know if this can be a little bit bigger, because my screen is really small and I'm unable to see the names. Okay, so we had the female who was the Oni of Ife pre-colonial days. Her name is there. It's a little bit small for me. I am not able to read it out. Then we had the woman who was a laughing of Oyo. We had two women, more than I think 3 women who were laughing of Oyo. Next slide, please. And we can see the different queens we had Queen Amina of Zazzau, who was very popular because of her role in leading the army of Zazzau to conquer emirates around her. But we had a lot of queens from Dora, especially from Katsina, especially the Dora Emirate. We have Dora, we have Kafino Dora, we have Iyamo from Akure, we have Ayo Ere from Akure, we have Gofano again from Dora, we have Yawono from the Yawono Dora, and a lot of them. You can see that Dora was a hotspot for women in governance before the colonial era. Next slide, please. Okay, post-colonial, during the colonial period, women were there was the influence of the colonialists who came in with their own culture and their own way of doing things. And we are all aware of, I don't know if we've had, or some of us may not have heard of the Aba Women's Riot in 1929. It was one of the most talked about women's movements in the history of women. That happened during the colonial era. What happened? The colonialists came and they reduced the participation of women in governance, and they totally dismantled most of the traditional titles and schools and the way of governance in many communities, and they put their warrant chiefs there, and women were seriously disenfranchised. And after that, women were now asked to pay tax, not just to pay tax, but to pay tax based on their households. That is part of what led to the women's revolt, but it's not the full story. It is mostly a lot about governance, about reducing the place of women in governance. And in the Northwest, we had the religious incursions from the Arab states, and that also affected women. You can see that the Northwest was a hotbed for women and for liberation. They had their own religion, their own traditional religions, they had their own culture, but the influence of religion is today greatly felt and has pulled women back in governance in the North. So during the colonial era, we had a few women who were very, very stubborn and forced themselves into the House of Chiefs. We had Mrs. Olufumila Ramson Kuti, who we know as Mama Fela, and the first woman to drive a car. We had Mrs. Margaret Ekpo, who the airport in Calabar is named after, and we have Janet Mokelu. They were women who insisted on being part of political parties and possessed very little functional relevance. So most likely just pushed into one position of women leader because they're making a lot of noise and we don't want women to talk too much or to seek too much power. So let us just give them one position and put them in the corner. So in the post-colonial era, we had more women coming out. The Margaret Echoes, of course, still came out, and they we had some women, especially in the eastern part of Nigeria, who contested who contested and won seats in the state house of assemblies. And in the northern Nigeria, however, because of the influence of religion, like I said, from having a northwest region where women were queens of whole empires, we now had a ban on women, on voting for women. And this was fought staunchly by a female politician known as Hajiya Gambo Sawaba. And she fought and fought till that ban was lifted, and they were allowed, women in the north were allowed to be voted for. Before then, women could only vote and not be voted for. Next slide, women in the north. Next slide, please. Okay, so after the post-colonial era, we now moved into democracy because I know there was a long reign of military regime. I didn't want to get a lot into that, but we moved into the democratic era and we sustained democracy for I think this is 25 years. From 1999 to date is 25 years in Nigeria. And the participation of women hasn't really been improved. I think we went to the highest participation during Yaradua and Goodluck Jonathan, where we had up to almost 20% of appointed positions for women, as against 30% advocated. Then at the point we had women in the House of Representatives, being 26 women in the House of Representatives and 8 women out of 109 senators, and that is the highest we've had for women who have been in elected positions. We've never had a female governor elected. We've had Dame Itabia of Anambra State, who was governor after Peter Obi was impeached, I think illegally, during his first tenure. Next slide. Okay, so I'm really hoping the admins can make this more participatory because I have 2 women here. And both of these women played a role in the 2023 election that got people talking. And I want us to have like a small debate on just a small discussion around these 2 women. So on the left, we have Professor Nnenna Oti, the returning officer of Abia State. And on the right, we have Aisha Binari. She was the gubernatorial candidate of APC in Adamawa State. So I would like us to have a small discussion, even if it's just in the chat, of the role of these women. Who knows these women and what were their roles in the 2023 election? Yes, I'm Ahmad Muhammad Lambo. Please go ahead. Yes, please go ahead. Unmute. Who can unmute him? Can the also unmute him?
Hello, I can
Yes,
hear
please
you.
go ahead. Yeah.
Personally, I know that of Aisha Binani because I'm from Adamawa State. She has played a very vital role in democracy, especially during this time where there are a lot of these things that is going on about gender bias in politics. She have even, let me say, she have even won Adamawa State, but consequently there are some legal uh, consequences that led to her defeat in the state and so on. But she has really played a very vital role, not only in the gubernatorial election. Let's not forget she was already a House of Representative for more than 8 years, I think. She also held a position in the Senate in Adamawa State Central. So it's from there that she even start contesting for the governorship election, for the governorship race for the first time. So you see, she has a lot of role that she has played in politics. So that's it.
Thank you very much. My question was, however, more specific on the election itself than the role she's played. So I don't know if there are any more people who want to respond to this before I go ahead. Okay, so I have Ahmad, you have already responded, so you can lower your hands. Godwin and Priska. So Godwin, go first. Godwin, can you respond? Okay, host, can you help me? Host, can you help me unmute Godwin and Priska and Uyori? I like my classes to be very interactive. I don't like just talking and people are doing their laundry on a Sunday. Okay. So Godwin, I think you can unmute now.
Yeah, good evening, ma'am.
Yeah, good evening.
Okay, so I know Professor Nena Oti to be the returning officer in the Abia State gubernatorial election. She stood firm and ensured that the will of the people was sustained. She, as we heard, she refused every form of coercion or bribe in order to declare the actual winner, so emerge as a winner, which was against the which was different from the interim government, the party of the interim government. On the other hand, Aisha Binani was the APC gubernatorial candidate for Adamawa State. She was very close to winning. Even the public, I would say that the public wanted her to win, but unfortunately she didn't win. And the returning officer for the state went ahead to declare her the winner even before the election was concluded. So that's the much I can say for now.
Okay, thank you. Priska, go ahead. You can unmute now. I think I made you co-host. Priska, Ugonna, can you unmute? I made you co-host. Try again. Uyore, you can unmute. Let's try and unmute. Let me see. Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, ma. Good evening, class.
Good evening.
Yeah. The two characters on the slide are the renowned characters in the 2023 elections for obvious reasons. You know, Professor Nena Oti stood out for me of the two characters because of the role she played in Abia State. She was then the returning officer for state elections. And then she under immense pressure, just like the last speaker spoke, to compromise the Abia State elections, especially from the actors of the ruling party, PDP. And she stood her grounds. All the bribes she was given, she did not take, stood her grounds. And if you watch what is happening in Abia State today, I believe because she didn't compromise and the will of the people prevailed. And so the governance in the state is reflecting the will of the people, of the person that the citizens believe that he had the capacity, the courage, and the competence to lead them. It is quite reflective. So she is a professor and the VC of Federal University of Technology, Mina, and she's from Ebonyi State. That's what I know about Prof. Oti. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your responses. Okay. So I'll give a brief I'll start with Aisha Binari because these were both very, very dramatic scenarios because a lot of people have already spoken of Professor Oti, which is clear. So the Adama election was very, very dramatic. Results were still coming in. And in the middle of that, we had the returning officer just walk up with a piece of paper, not the result sheets that, as we know how results are announced, just took a piece of paper that already been scribbled on and announced Aisha Binari as the winner of the election. And Aisha, on her own, went ahead and gave an acceptance speech. I was stunned. I was up for, oh, let's women, they will be first female governor, but I was stunned. Never in the history of Nigeria have I ever, of my following politics, have I ever seen such, even in men participating, have I ever seen such guts? Even when they try to, I know that there are situations where they try to rig elections, but it has never been so bizarre or so, it has never been so obvious. It was equivalent of a modern day coup. And Professor Oti, on the other hand, we know what happened and we know how other states caved, and we know the whole story. There was back and forth. She stood her ground and ensured that she announced the result of the election as it was. Sorry, the state commissioner of INEC, thank you very much, not the returning officer. The returning officer was not even there, just the state INEC commissioner, Ari. I'm trying to remember his first name, but I know he's Ari, and he was a lawyer too. So it was the most ridiculous thing that I had ever seen in Hudu Ari. Thank you very much. In democracy, in my how many years of voting. So why am I bringing out these two men? These are two women. And these are women who have achieved a lot in their respective careers. Professor Uti, like we know, you don't just become a professor overnight. And we know how she stood out with the Abia election. And Aisha Binari, who has stood out who has a long history of good governance and working for our communities as a House of Rep member and as a businesswoman, as a gender. But for the 2023 election, her role was infamous. That's the best I can say. Why am I putting these two women together? That because we advocate that women should be in governance doesn't mean that we are saying women in governance are the best leaders. Women are human beings, they are not saints. And women in governance are not saints too. Women in governance can excel, and women in governance can make huge blunders, as we have seen here. But nobody ever gives this, when a woman gets in governance and she does something like this, it becomes a huge issue. Oh, they are saying give women a chance, but this is what women are doing. But men do this, women in governance do this every time, and it's never a gender issue. So for both genders, for men and women, we have people who excel, Yes, Natasha Akpoti of Kogi State. I agree. She's been on it for a long time. She's tried to be governor. She's done a lot, and this is just for reference purposes, so that we can compare and contrast, and show that women can be both. Women can be very good, can excel in governance, and women can also do can play very bad roles in governance. It's not to say these are the only women in governance. So women can do both, can be both. So the aim is to have women participate in governance, not just to be giving, as most people say, give us 30%, give us 40%, give us this, give us that. But to participate based on what we give as women, not just because we want tokenism, but to put their best foot forward, to do their best to stand their grounds, and to do well for their communities. Next slide, please. Okay, so our three major political parties that we have, apologies to NNPP, I've seen you there, but I took the political parties that scored above 30% in the general election. So for APC, how they encourage women is that they have 50% of their nomination forms. PDP also has the same policy. For Labour Party, they have expression of interest forms are given free to women, youth, and people with disability. Next slide, please. Okay, so challenges and opportunities for women in participation in governance. I really want to have a robust discussion around number one. I want to ask a question. I want to mention two women. I can type it in the chat box. And I want people to tell me what they know about this, which of these two women that they know, which of these two women they know. So the first woman is Tokema Kunwa. Just by a show of hands, let me know how many women know who Tokema Kunwa is. Just raise your hands, since unmuting is an issue. How many women here, or how many people here, how many women in this class know who Tokema Kunwa is? So I have one hand up. Only one hand. Okay, so second woman, how many women in this group know who Josephine Efua Chukuma is? My hands are not coming up. Or you can put it in the chat box. Let me type both names. The chat box has disappeared. Okay, somebody says Josephine sounds really familiar, but I can't place the face in time. What do you know Tokema Kinwa though? Yeah, Tokema Kinwa. Yep, Tokema Kinwa. So who is Tokema Kinwa? What does she do? What has she done for women in governance? Or women generally in Nigeria? So you can just put your answer in the chat box. What has Tokema Kinwa done for women in governance or women generally in Nigeria? Yeah, I see the Tokema Kinwa, but the second question is, what has Tokema Kinwa done for women, for the cause of women in Nigeria? Okay, so I'm not getting any responses, but I'm sure the people will be scratching their heads to come up with responses on that. But let me tell you a little bit about Josephine, even though a lot of people do not know her. Tokema Kinwa, yeah. She's the first woman. She's one of the first people to start a and an NGO that was fighting against gender-based violence in Nigeria. She's one of the proponents of the violence. She's not a journalist. She's one of the proponents of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, which is now the VAP law that we know that domesticated in 36 states. She was one of the first people that started the NGO to speak up, to raise awareness against violence against women in Nigeria. And after that, not just awareness, they now push for laws to stop violence against persons, not against women. They had an advocacy group and they now push for the law to start to speak against, Tokema Kinwa. Yeah, to speak against violence against women. I'm speaking more of modern day women and to show interest and of young women in politics now, of violence against women. She's also started the center, first female shelter in Lagos, and has also been very instrumental in ensuring that almost all the states in Nigeria not only have state action committees against violence against women, but also have shelters and safe spaces where women can go and report where they have where there are cases of violence. I know in Sokoto we have Gidan Bege. Other states have different centers. This is the woman that has done a lot for the cause of women in Nigeria. In 2022, they were the proponents of the law where I'm sure a lot of you do not even know that this law exists, that I as a woman cannot confer citizenship of my husband. If I marry a foreigner, the constitution does not allow me as a woman to marry my husband and make him a citizen of Nigeria. Only a man can do that. So there are some of the people that pushed against to repeal that law during the constitutional review process, but that failed. But we know a lot of our celebrities. If I say I want to talk about Tonto Dike now, everybody knows her. I want to talk about Okema Kinwa, everybody knows her. We know these women who are famous for other things. But the women who are really participating in pushing the causes of women, in doing governance, in doing things that will promote the activities of women, even we women do not know them. If I want to have a discussion, if I'm a social media influencer and I want to bring engagements, what do? I start talking about gossip. Who is sleeping with who? I start saying, twe. I have the latest news about somebody. I have the latest news about, and you have in 1 minute or in 10 minutes, you have 20,000 comments. And I can bet you that 80%, I don't have this, nobody should ask me for the data, my data source, but I can bet that 80% of the people in the comment section waiting to hear the gist, speculating, talking, engaging, sharing, screenshotting, discussing are women. But if I now put up a tweet, like in 2022, I was doing that. It was a series of messages to talk about the issue, like I raised, that women cannot confer citizenship on their husbands, and that should be an issue of the law. Or if I now bring up the issues, the many discrimination against women that in the Constitution, to talk about, I can bet you that I won't get 2 comments. And even if I get 2 comments, it is going to be, one of it will be from a man. If not, the 2 will be from men. The interest for women is really not there. For most of the women, I'm not talking about women who are already participating in politics. Most of the women, our interests, we do not, it is easy to say, oh, let's blame patriarchy, let's blame men, let's blame religion, let's blame culture. But even as young women, what are your interests? Honestly, is this in political conversations? What do you do to put political conversations? Even if we push political conversations, the young women we are pushing political conversations, so are they listening? Are they participating? Are they interested? What happens is that after every 4 years, we have maybe 3 years after election, we have women just come up and say, oh, women support women. Women will participate. Women should vote for women. Oh, women hate each other. They are not voting. But these are people that have not participated in the process for 3 years. They haven't been engaging. They haven't been following. They haven't been speaking. They haven't been out there. Peter Obi didn't just happen in 2023. Peter Obi has been engaging for a period of time. He had been attending events, he had been talking, he had been speaking, he had been doing tidbits, he had been attending meetings, he had been he had been pushing himself out. And somehow in 2023, it just happened that people saw somebody that they could identify with. But it didn't just happen, it didn't just come from nowhere. And people say, oh, because he's a man, I want to identify with him. And that is not going to happen for any woman. That you just come out one time and people will say, oh, because she's a woman, I want to identify with her. It is not something that is given. It's something that is worked towards. It's something that is built. I believe me, I try to do a lot of engagements, even just ordinarily on the VAP bill, something that will help my own women. I try to break down the VAP law, that's violence against persons law, for women who are victims of this of violence, women who are victims of maybe of abandonment. I try to say, okay, there are laws. This is the law. This is the steps to follow. This is what can be done. And since a woman that will come and tell me that it cannot work, the law cannot work, they are more satisfied with having these groups where they have all these stories. Oh, a man woke up in the morning, took his baby's head and smashed. A man woke up in the morning, threw his wife out. But what can you do about this? Where can we go beyond just having these discussions? What are the conversations that we can have to push this forward, to make this a governance issue, to make this a policy issue? That's where women remove a lot of women remove their hands. They just want to have the just value of governance, not the actual work of governance. So for me, I feel that the biggest impediment for women in governance is their interest and participation. 2023, we saw an unprecedented participation of young people, even women in governance. People were going out to elect their PVCs, people were going out to campaign, people were campaigning, spending their money to campaign, to vote, because they found somebody that caught their interest. So for women, if we want young women to participate in governance, what are the things that we can do that can motivate their interest to be in gender, that can cultivate their interest as much as we saw in 2023 with young people? What are the things that we can do? What are the things that we must do? How can we now, what are the ways that we can look to increase their participation and their interest so that we can move beyond having a lot of women going to camp on Insta, is it Insta blog or Gist Lover? I don't know which one is the most popular now. Insta blog or Gist Lover, camp there, but on their pages and waiting for news and gossip to drop, to having serious conversations on how we can participate, how we can grow, how we can push, how we can mass mobilize, and how we can become part of governance. For me, I feel that is the greatest threat to women in governance, the interest of women. Another issue, as we have discussed previously in the introductory slide, is religion and culture. We have some religions that are impaired, that limit women's participations in governance. And it's not mostly the religion, sometimes it's interpretation. Some will say, oh, our religion says where there's a man, a woman cannot be in governance. Or there are some cultures that say a woman cannot do certain rituals, so therefore a woman cannot be in certain positions. So these are some of the cultures that limit women. Religion also, like I said, before the incursion of the religious this in the north. Who wants to be co-host? Chalia. Okay, let me see if I can do that. So just ask on mute so that I can make you co-host. Raise your hand and ask on mute, Chalia. I can't find you here. Okay. I can't find Chalia. Oh. Chalia, I can't find you. Okay, yeah. Okay. Done. Okay. So So what are some of the opportunities that we can have for women? Like I said, it has to start from interest. It has to start from interest. Women have to be interested and not begged to be interested. Women have to be interested in governance. They have to want to participate. They have to want to participate. And one of the ways that the 2023 election became very participatory was the peer pressure method. For those people who were my friends during the 2023 election, I did a lot of advocacy towards collection of PVC. I made it so uncomfortable for people who around me who had not collected their PVC. And I had people who were in days, I had over 500 people in weeks. I had over 500 people who had not collected their PVC, who had transferred or who were just reluctant, rushed to go and collect their PVC because of the peer pressure method. What is peer pressure method? You make it seem as if peer pressure method is a method of advocacy where we make it seem as if you are not doing this, that means you don't even know what you are doing. You are not cool. You are not a party. I was putting out post after post, and I had people, professors, various older elderly people going out to say, "Oh, Aisha, it's enough. Please, so stop harassing me. I pick my PVC," and they will share their PVC. So these are some of the methods that we can use to advocate for younger women to participate in politics. How do we make it cool? How do we make governance cool for younger women to want to participate? Because we have the numbers, but do we have the interest? Do we sustain the interest? Then funding is also one of the opportunities that we can use to push women to increase gender participation in governance. Increase support. We have the Nigerian Women Trust Fund and other funds. But during the 2023 election, I did not feel their impact as much as I should have. Advocacy and continuous engagement. We continue to teach classes like this. We are encouraged to speak to other women, speak to younger women to continue to develop and sustain interest in politics and governance, and also involvement and exposure of women, engagement of women of influence and influencers in politics. So some of these women that I mentioned who are influencers who just drop a full stop and you have 20,000 comments. How do we get to engage them? That they become interested in politics and governance and are able to encourage other young women who follow them to participate. So these are some of the opportunities that we have, the challenges we have, and the opportunities we have for women participation in governance. It is a far cry from where we should be, but I believe as we continue to grow and we continue to push and we continue to educate and advocate, we are going to get better. Thank you very much for listening. I wish I had a more participatory class. Open to questions and answers, questions and comments.
All right, thank you very much, Ma, for that insightful class. Do we have questions? Please raise your hands or put your questions in the chat box.
Despise her, but I actually like her. Usually fall for women like Angelica. Life's easier.
And your gore married you. Torito.
Thank you for enjoying my class. I enjoyed teaching it, but I really like to see questions, comments.
Okay, we'll take questions now. Thank you, ma'am, for the
Okay, I've asked.
Okay, so I see two hands. Origene hands. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce it. But I'll ask you to unmute now. Origana, please go ahead. I've asked you to unmute to ask a question.
Okay. Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this brilliant presentation. Sorry, I came late, but I don't know if in your presentation you have mentioned something like this. I want to know, is there any provision in the Nigerian constitution for?
Sorry, I can't hear you. I don't know if it's just me, but we are breaking.
Please try speaking a bit louder.
Okay, is it better?
Okay. Hello. Okay, you're breaking up. Can you type your questions in the chat box?
Okay, no problem.
All right. Gift. I've asked you to unmute, please. Gift. Okay, go ahead, please.
All right. Hi, good afternoon. So I wanted to ask a question that I was asked during the last election season. So I was speaking to a couple of young women about, women's participation in politics and all of that. And then one of them, gave a concern. That's been that she personally doesn't think that the political space favors women because most of the meetings and discussions, all those late night meetings and all of that, and as an African and as a married woman, it doesn't speak well of her to be out in meetings at 12 a.m., till 4, and all those late night meetings and all of that she doesn't feel, comfortable in those spaces. And they also raised concerns about how that politics, especially in Africa and Nigeria, is a dirty game that you have to do like rituals and the election that comes, the violence, that comes with electioneering processes. So I wanted to know your thoughts regarding these issues. And with someone like if I wanted to give an example of Ireti, for instance. So Ireti running against Aduda, who has been, the senator holding the seat. Ireti won by grace, if I would say, because there was this wave of labor, at that time. So I just wanted to know what your thoughts are with regards to all the late night meetings, the violence, and all of these things. That the stereotyping that comes with women, going into politics. If you as a woman, you want to pick a position, there's always this thing of, okay, what has she let go of? What has she given? You can't just get a seat without, someone has even made a statement to me to say that women who go into politics sleep around with, these men. So I just wanted to know if you've had, people speak on these stereotypes and these concerns and what your thoughts are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Gift. Very, very interesting question, very good question. But in reality, these stereotypes will always be there. And this is not just applicable to women, it's applicable to men too. Men in politics are called all sorts of names. They are given all sorts of titles. You may be the most honest person, but once you get into politics, you are free game for everybody. Nobody has sympathy for you, nobody. And it is not just women. Yeah, but it may be it is a lot harder for women, but the stereotypes are across board. If I want to speak about a politician, the first person will think somebody will say that he's a thief. It doesn't matter whether this person has never taken a kobo in his life, has never been the most honest person, but there's a stereotype attached. And let me tell you about Ireti. Ireti did not just win by grace. Yes, she had the Labour Party movement, but Ireti had been contesting for as long as I can remember. I know her husband, I know her husband's other wife, and I know when Ireti started contesting to be a senator in FCT. It has been years ago. I worked with Ireti in 2010 when the wife of President Jonathan, I worked in her NGO, had the Women for Change initiative. Ireti was part of it. Ireti was working effortlessly to secure the ticket for under the PDP to be senator for FCT, and she lost under Philip Aduda. And she has played the game. She has played the long game, and thankfully this time it worked out for her. So it is not. There's no option. We can. There's this thing women do. We try to infantilize ourselves. Oh, this is not fair, woman. This is not this on that. But this is the game. For now, we do not have another way to play. This is the game. This is a long game. This is the way it is played. And what stops women from having their own pressure groups? What stops women from building interest of young people of like minds, like happened with Peter Obi? We saw that, we see how politics was played, but we saw how Peter Obi came out to do his own. And people were willingly volunteering. This is a country where people wait for handouts to say, oh, in selection period, oh, I have my budget, I'm going to influence for you, you pay me this amount. But these were people influencing for free, not only influencing for people who were putting their money together, people were putting their resources together, people were going on matches together, And this was a departure from the old way of doing politics. So what stops women from building pressure groups that depart from this way of doing late night meetings, doing godfatherism, doing all those things, and now building a movement where people will be willing to do these things by the book, do these things right, and not just go by the way it has always been done. It is a long game, it is a hard game, it's a difficult game. The reality is that we have been advocating for 30% in Nigeria, but nobody is going to give it. Nobody is going to dash it. It has to be played. It has to be done. It has to be. I mean, it has to be something that you build over time. And it has to. It's just there's no shortcut. There's no pity us, we are women. Just give it to us. Just make it easier for us. I'm sorry, that is not going to happen. The stereotypes are there. As a woman, there's no, even just in your workplace, even with your work, even with just living in the neighborhood, you are called names, you are giving tags, you shake it off, you move on, and you do your best. And that also applies to politics. People are not going to lower the standard, or they are not going to make it easier so that you can win an elected position. They are not going to do that, no matter how good you are in the kind of world we are in. So we either participate, or we say, no, we are too precious for that. We don't want this tag, we don't want that. And we let other people that keep doing this participate and rule us. That's the reality. I'm sorry, it may not answer your question. It may not be the response you wanted, but that is just the reality of it. Gifts, okay. I hope you're not upset with me. Sunday.
All right, thank you so much, Aisha. Next, we'll have Sunday, and then after that, Dr. John. Sunday, I've asked you to unmute, please.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Ma. Thank you very much for the lectures. Okay, my question is, okay, over the years, different government in Nigeria comes and another one comes in and all of that. And they've all been talking about this 30% affirmative action and all of that. So, and they've not really, they've not really kept to their words, right? And I'd like to know what can, what we call them now, pressure groups and civil society organizations do to make sure any government at all, keep to their words as regards 30% affirmative action. That's my question.
Okay, thank you very much, Sunday. So the only thing that can be done is that you are in politics. You have to be a force. You have to be a force strong enough for anybody to take you seriously. That's the reality of it. So do women have a voting bloc that can say and stand by it that if you do not give us 30% if you do not give us 30% affirmative action in your cabinet, or if you do not sign with us that this is going to be done, we are not going to vote for you. We are not going to support you. we are not going to be part of your administration. So do we have that kind of voting power? Do we have that kind of block power? In Nigeria today, all politicians, they'll say, I fear the North. All politicians pander to the North. Why? Because they have the voting block, they have the voting power. We may not like it, it may not be something that we enjoy having, but that is the reality. Women have the population, women have the capacity to have that kind of voting block. But like I said during the class, do we have the interest to participate and participate massively? Do we have the interest to be that kind of sustainable voting block that people are afraid of? To say, if these people do not support us, then we'll be in trouble. So we have to pander and we have to give them what they want. And that's just the reality in politics. It comes with what percentage of votes can I get from this voting block? So we have a situation where a group of women will come out and make a statement. The woman in the marketplace will just, the politician will just go meet the market leader, share a few things, and that is all. So are we taken seriously as a voting block? Can we build that strong advocacy and strong support as a voting base, be able to ensure that when we say we want 30%, we are sticking to that 30% and we cannot move? Sunday, I hope that answers your question in a way, even though it may not be the way you want to hear it. Thank you.
Dr. John, I've asked you to unmute, please. Okay, go ahead and ask your question. Dr. John, if you're not able, I would move to the next person. Lalade. Please go ahead and ask a question. There's some questions in the chat box that I've seen. So if you're not able to
Okay, good evening, everyone. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much for that wonderful section. It's really detailed and insightful for me. The question I really want to ask is something that has been baffling me like for a year now. So there's this program news, National Institute of Legislative Studies, they did last year about women in governance. So I was privileged to be there. And they have the converged women in House of Rep, women in state assemblies to come there to come and discuss, why we have low representation of women. So some women were now saying that the issue now is not that their husband are not supporting them, even though they are, their stereotypes, they accept it, and they are willing to, to try to face the challenges stereotyping is bringing, cultural barriers and all that. But at times, the issue really comes from the fact that there are some women that are even up there, that are not even ready to support people that are upcoming. So and they were start saying that, okay, for instance, there's this House of Rep member, this that was saying that that time, at that point in time, she has gone to meetings, she has paid, she has done every possible thing that even the stakeholder in our community, in our constituency rather, they all supported and all that. But there are still some women, that are still telling her that she would not get there, and she has to just find her way around, and to just make sure that she do what they want. So my question is like, what do you want to do about this issue of women that are not really supporting women? They are not really interested in you. Okay, if you go and meet a woman that you want her to mentor you, that you are really interested in this thing, they would not want you to even mount that place, or saying that your ambition is being fulfilled. So I don't know if you have any answer to this question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Olade. This is a very vital issue you raised. So I think when I was working in gender and when I was working with the organization to increase participation of women in politics, one thing I was able to do then was to like a mentor-mentee program for women who are successful in politics and women who are coming up in politics, to merge them together and have like a mentor-mentee relationship. And that really was relatively successful. So it is not something, like I said, what I think a lot of challenges that we have most times, even in the workplace, not just in politics, is that I expect that, oh, this woman is, because a woman is here, I expect that a woman lowers the bar for me, a woman does certain things for me, a woman goes, just supports me regardless of whether I put in my own bit or not. And some are not willing to put in the work that it takes. And yes, it is very true that some of the women who have gotten to those positions are not willing to support other women. And by support, I'm not saying lower the bar for them, but just encourage them. How did I do this? You have women who say, oh, I suffered before I got here. I went through a lot before I got here. So other women that are coming behind me must suffer, must go through the same things that I went through to be in this situation. So what can we do to bridge this gap between the older generation and this coming in generation and those women that are trying to come in? Mentoring. Both have to be able to understand each other because we are from diverse generations. We have a group of women who have suffered. These are women that have gone through military regime. They have suffered. They did protest. They were beaten. They were flogged. Some of them were jailed. Some of them have done unimaginable things before they got to that position. Now we have this generation of women who value their mental health, who do not even want to hear anything that is suffering. So how do we have a middle ground where this generation of women are able to understand where this other generation of women are coming from and meet in the middle and learn and also mentor and grow and groom this young women? That is where we start from. When we're able to have a melting pot to understand that because as a woman you went through this and that, other women coming in should not have to go through this. It should be easier for other women coming up. Then we'll have some growing. Another thing that I have to emphasize, this interest. We have a huge population of women, but what are women really interested in? What are the interests of women? So you're trying to mentor, if I as an older mentor, I'm saying, okay, I want to mentor a group of women in politics. Okay, I want to put them, I do not want them to go through what I went through. I want to put them through, this is the way, this is how they will go. And the women are not just interested. I can't force it. You want some level of basic commitment, and they're not just interested in giving any percentage of their commitment. You can't force it. So it is a lot of work to be done. It's something that we have to keep working and building on. And it's something that will not get there in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. It's something that has to be continuous and consistent for a lot of years before we are able to get there and achieve it. And we have to have a synergy, because we cannot have this other generation dying down. And then we have people like, sorry to say, Beta Edu, who was supposed to be like the next generation of female politicians. But we know how that ended up. And we can't have that. We have to have women of this generation who are coming up, who have standards, who have, when you speak of women contributing to governance and politics, you can count, like I listed effortlessly what Josephine has done. We can say this is what their contribution has been, this is their way, where they're coming from, and this is what they can do, this is what they have done, and this is what they can contribute to young people. So I think we have to have more synergy between women. Yes, I agree. But we also have to have women who are willing to put in the work from both generations. Lolade, I hope that answers your question. Thank you. Okay, so Dr. John, your hand is still raised. Please, if you can unmute.
Unmute.
Yes,
okay.
please.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. But my contribution for women participation in politics is like, I would say that there's already been a grand design for women to succeed in politics. As a matter of fact, there is enough evidence on ground to show that women have been very successful in politics, any way you want to look at it in the world. The likes of the Margaret Thatchers, the likes of the former German Chancellor, and even in the history of Nigeria, women have also been very, very successful. I understand that at a certain point, we have been talking about women participation in politics, and that came up with the 30% affirmative order for women. But how much do women really want to participate in politics? Sorry to give Bubble a bit, because I remember when she was talking, she said things like, women are not really into politics because of the things that go on in politics, that they can't go out at night and all that. And she also said something about Areti winning by grace. It's not by grace. The Akpotis that won in Kogi State and even in Areti, it's not by grace. They did everything that everybody has to do to win an election in Nigeria. They did their campaign. They sat out at night. They did all the necessary negotiations and every consultation that needed to be done. Each of these people that won these elections did not see themselves like women. They stepped out there and they contested for elections and they won. What I'm saying in essence is there's really no difference between you being a female candidate. In fact, to some extent, being a woman in a political race, you actually have some level of advantage, to be very sincere. Now, in recent times, we've heard about legislation, women pushing for legislation for the post of deputy governors to be zoned to women. I don't know if you are aware of that legislation, but it's been in the media for a couple of weeks now about women canvassing to be deputy governors in all the states. I don't know what your position is on that. Though on the personal, I don't know. I don't think it's going to be very successful considering how our social demographic is in this country. But then again, I think women are well placed in this country to lead. For a lot of years, we've seen men go into leadership position and they've not given us results. And I can bet you if the women are really interested in leadership, a lot of them are going to get favorable positions because people are tired of trying out the men. Now, another thing I would like to say is that the women themselves need to realize that it's no longer like before where they have to sit in the background and feel that public sympathy would make people to see that they have to come out and contest. Classical example, for my party in this college, the NNPP, we are women friendly. And that's why we projected a woman to be our gubernatorial candidate for the Edo State elections. It was an overwhelming victory in our primaries for a woman. And that's because we support women and we also have a place for women in the party. Even in other things we've done in the party, we've always made provisions for women to participate. I remember in the electoral committee when it was setting up, we insisted that the woman have to be the secretary. You understand? And even when we're looking out for the party exco, we also insisted that we need to have a woman there. I'm just saying this in essence because the political parties in Nigeria would also need to be more emphatic to encourage women to be participating more. It doesn't have to be the women alone who are coming out to say they want to canvass for elections, they want to vote and all that. The political parties need to be more emphatic. The political parties need to be more strategic, and they need to be sure that they want women to really participate. It's true, we have more men, predominant male in the political sphere, but the political parties themselves is not just enough to come out and say 30% affirmative order. What have they put in place to ensure that women participate more in politics? So on the basis of what I've said, I would like to know what your opinion is in regards to what the legislation that the women are trying to put as regards the deputy governor position for the state governors for different states in maybe in 2027. Thank you.
Okay. So I lost you. I lost network somewhere along the line. I lost you, but I think I get the general idea of what you are saying. Just to clarify that my personal opinion, and not doesn't represent any organization. My personal opinion towards this give us positions is the same. It's not something I group can come up and say, okay, we demand this, give us, and it is worked for, it is fought for, it is. So I do not know. I've not read about to ensure that female deputy governors are women. The Constitution is supreme, and the Constitution does not allow us to be that kind of law. That means there has to be put into the constitutional review. So women being in politics, yes, women have higher positions, but the issue is that for the percentage of women that are of voting age, vote, pay taxes, and are voted for, we do not have the same percentage of women who have been in leadership positions. We have never had a female president in Nigeria. We never had a female vice president. We never had a female Senate president. And like I've shared some of the data. The highest we've had for Senate is 8 out of 109 men. And that is why it is not a day's journey. It's not as if I am not an advocate for, oh, just give us these positions, just do that. I'm an advocate of letting women know how it is truly. The reality of it, the reality of policy, the reality of governance, and knowing that if we are going to participate, we cannot just participate by complaining or by saying, give us, or share for us, or do this and do that for us. It is going to be that you are going to plan, like you said, with concerning Ireti and Natasha, they planned, they worked, they campaigned, and finally it happened for them. Especially, I personally know Ireti. I know how long she has been on this. I know how far she has done. I know how hard she has worked on this. I know how much money she has put into politics and governance. And I know it is not it's not grace, it is not luck. It is just that her hard work has come to fruition. So it has to be like I said, it has to be something that is earned, not something that is given. So let me even give you what if we have a situation like we have in the US now, where we say, okay, we are reserving this position for women. Then we now have men who come and say they identify as women. So what do you do in that kind of situation? Because that's a challenge that is really becoming an issue for them right now. People who change their identity and they want to identify and they want to benefit of those who are in those positions. So for me, I'm not a fan of give us, or I want people to know that this is what it takes to be in certain positions and this is how we can get to certain positions. So I see a question here from Caroline. When a woman gets married and decides to run for office, is she supposed to run in her husband's constituency or has? Concerning the change of name for somebody who has been using her profile name with her maiden name is how a maiden name. There's no law that, and there's no law that will say that says you don't have to change your name. It is a matter of personal. I feel that you do not need to change your name. You can change your name privately or personally. A lot of women, like I am using a hyphenated name. You can still use your name politically. So I don't think change of name is an issue that we tend to, because these are some of the debates that distract women. Should a woman sit in the front seat when her mother-in-law is in the car? Should you go and cook a pot of soup? Should you go and open a woman's pot of soup? Should a woman change her name or should she not change her name? These are issues that, for me, I feel that they are distracting, they are not productive, they are things that, so it's a personal choice. And it is not backed by any religion, it's not backed by any culture. It is a borrowed culture, and it's a matter of personal choice. I added my husband's name for convenience of traveling with my children, specifically. I was not forced, I was not coerced. And these are discussions that you have with your spouse and you agree with on your spouse. It's a personal issue. It should not be affecting governance or politics or whatever. Then for running, a woman she runs where she's from. I think that is what the law says. Except maybe she has naturalized and she has become become an indigene of that state where she is, because there's a number of years that you spend in a location and become an indigene of the place. But for most women that I know, they run in their own constituency and not their husband's constituency. There's a lot of back and forth over it. There's no right or wrong answer, but that is what I feel. Women run in their constituency and not their husband's own, but there's a lot of there's a lot of gray areas around that. It's not a black and white answer. I see other questions, but they've disappeared. Somebody said, why are we not advocating for male in governance? And I said there are already a lot of males in governance. There are a lot of males who have been in various positions of governance, and we are just advocating not for, my own advocacy is not for women to be given or dash positions. It is for women to know what it takes to be in governance, know that before democracy, before colonialism, women were in governance. Even in Castina, that is today seen as a state that is not pro-women, women were in governance, women were in roles, women were playing roles, women were working hard, women were doing all sorts of things. And so we should not be limited by what people say limits us. We've been doing it before, we can do it again. We have to know what it takes and we have to put in the hard work. That is my advocacy, and that is where I stand with the course on this. Thank you. Adesola, over to you, if there are no more questions or comments.
Okay. I think Adeshola is unavailable. Charlie, are you there?
Yes,
All right.
Didi.
Okay. Please take over.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Ma. I can't see any question here or any hands raised. So thank you very much, Ma.
Let's get straight to the point.
Yes.
Okay, I just saw your comments.
Yes. So yes, like I said, there's no straightforward answer. She won once, and I don't think she was allowed to contest again. So yeah, so it's a lot of gray area around that, and it's a lot of back and forth. Before I go, the lady who won the 1,000 naira recharge card for winning the quiz question, please reach out to Lisa with your phone number and preferred network, and Lisa will reach out to me, and so I can share your prize on the quiz.
All right, Ma. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure having you with us. I'm sure the class was they got a lot of knowledge and insights this evening. Thank you so much. So the person that won the quiz, please make sure you reach out to me so that I can forward your number to her. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you for the sacrifice of being here.
Thank you very much,
Really
everybody.
appreciate it.
Yeah, it is always an honor to be here. Lisa, if there's nothing else, I'm permitted to take my leave.
Yes, you are, ma. Thank you
you.
so much.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, thank you, everyone. For your project, I hope you've started this course on it. Like we said earlier, it's a group assignment. It's not individual, please. It's a group assignment. Each of the parties are supposed to come up with what they want to do. And, you can pass it by us. So we'll be sure that you're in line and then you can go ahead. So there are no restrictions. There's no particular thing that we're saying you have to do. So you can be as creative as you want. The idea is just to make sure that you pass across the knowledge that you've learned. So it could be virtual, it could be physical, anyone you choose is fine by us. Just make sure you abide by the rules. It must not be tribalistic, it must not be against anybody in office, and all that is contained in the circular that went out. Yeah. So well done, everybody. I'm sure you've seen the results from your assignment. So classes continue tomorrow. Oh, today is Sunday. Classes continue next weekend. So have a great week ahead.